Okay, Candace, here's a couple things, and I'm absolutely happy to help you out anytime. In the end, of course, I know you want to get a good grade, but I just want you to understand what's happening. So even though it's the final project, my students that are in my classroom, I help through all the stuff, so it's no different when you're online. So I can tell you what's going on here. This, you have everything correct in that you have the correct header in here. And actually, you know what? Sorry, I'm just going to go back to your original message and make sure I'm not misunderstanding, because you just want to make sure you can see how to separate the sections. So, yeah, okay. So here you have, and this is all correct, you have your header in your section 1, and you have the footer, correct? But what they want you to do in the directions is they want you to not have a header in section 2. Your footer is supposed to be on every page in both sections, so you would leave that the same. So basically, you can do this a couple different ways. How they had you do it in the directions, they told you to, basically when it says, sorry, I'm going to go back to this again. When it says separate section 1 header from the section 2 header, what that means is the same as previous needs to be turned off. Maybe those directions are a little confusing. Basically how I would say that is we want to be able to do something different in section 2 header than we do in section 1 header. So we do not want them to be linked. So automatically, when you put in the section break next page, it links all the headers and footers. So if you put in a header and footer, it's still going to put it on every page. But a lot of times when we're putting in those section breaks, it's to be able to, like you did here, make it landscape, do some different things. But in many times as well, we want the headers and footers to be different. So we want to undo that link as previous. So I click in here, I can see same as previous here. I come on up into my ribbon. And if this is not showing, you're just looking for your header and footer tools, click on that, and we're going to turn off link to previous. It's like a toggle button, basically. It's either on, I say okay, and you see the same as previous. I turn it off, link to previous, same as previous goes away. So now what that means, and before I say that, sorry, the footer is different. So how you treat the header can be different than how you treat the footer. So the footer, we do want the same as previous to be turned on because we want that same footer on every page. But we can treat the headers and footers separately. So now that I have same as previous turned off, that means that this will not be the same as the previous section up here. So now I can come in here and I can delete, oops, I'm going to get on the border there. I can delete that header. And when I come up in here, I'll see that the header is still there. So basically in the directions, it was asking you to do that, turn that link to previous off first. And if you would have done that, it just would have meant you wouldn't have had to come in here and delete the header, but it's not a big deal. So you just open up your file, turn off that link to previous, delete this header, make sure that the header is still then appearing in your section 1 section. So that's that. Hopefully, I'm hoping that that makes sense to you. Other than that, everything else is looking really good here. In your other document, I had this issue yesterday with one of my students in person, and that's the only reason why I was like, oh, I can see what's happening here. This text should not be Calibri. Now, I know in the directions it tells you to change it to Calibri, but then shortly after that, it has you change the theme to this integral theme. And for whatever reason, your font isn't changing. The font should be this TWCNT-MT, and that's a condensed font. And even though this is chosen, it almost appears as though it's working. It's not, because I go to the Home tab and I can see that Calibri is still chosen. And even if you select that theme, which is already selected, it still isn't changing the font. So what you're going to need to do is you need to select all of your text, except, right up until this point. So not the last 2 lines here. When they had you do this, they didn't have these last 2 lines as part of that. And then just go up and actually change the font yourself. So on the drop-down arrow here on the Home tab, I'm going to choose this TWCNMT. And you can see that that really adjusts this on your page then, which then makes more room for your text box here, which you can then pull up. And then when you add those, remember you're doing Shift Enter for those manual line breaks, and you'll see those little arrows there when you insert that manual line break. So you really did nothing wrong. Like I said, when I was helping the student yesterday, I don't know why that's not changing. When you change the theme, the font should have changed. And the only thing is really these headers should also change, should technically be this headings, but I honestly would not even notice that difference. So if you don't want to go through and change those, you don't need to. But if you change that font, select all your text, obviously not this, and obviously not the text at the very bottom. That'll move everything up, and then you'll have room for this text box at the end. All right, I hope that helps. Let me know if you have any more questions.